Time of day it is while you're watching this. This is The Commute with Macumber Brass, episode 5 or 6. I haven't done one in a while. I've had a lot of other things on my mind during commutes, but now we're going to talk about music ed and what it's like being on the educator side of a warm-up lot versus on the performer side. So if you haven't figured it out, or if you didn't know, I am on the winds staff of Hydra Winds, Georgia's independent indoor winds group. And this is my first season on the educator side of an independent circuit, because I've taught a bunch of high school band, I've taught some middle school band, but I've never been on the other side, like the educator side of an independent group in a warm-up lot. And it is a little bit different. The intensity of a warm-up lot falls way more on the staff members than it does on the performing members. At least that's how it felt this past weekend. And I think it's because of this natural burden of being an educator, setting your students up for success, which is something that is it's more applicable in far more areas than just an independent indoor winds group warm-up lot. That is applicable in every single sport, every single competitive activity, every single non-competitive activity. Setting your students up for success, setting them up for growth. It is way more than just being an educator versus being a member. We can talk about that a little bit more later, but the ins and outs of it, everything just in the warm-up lots felt so much faster to me, because I was watching and teaching in that warm-up lot. Watching the visual staff take them through visual warm-up. And the reality of that visual warm-up is we really only had 15 minutes of visual warm-up. And then we would have 15 minutes of music warm-up too. You gotta pack everything you need to do into those two little 15-minute windows. Even if it's a 20-minute window, you still only have 20 minutes to warm yourself up and get ready for a show, which is not a lot of time. And even in drum corps, sometimes our warm-ups were and are accelerated. Sometimes we have 7 minutes to warm up visually, and it's 8s and 8s forwards, 8s and 8s backwards. Check a couple choreography spots, and that's all you get. So being flexible as a performer and as a staff member is imperative, because you have to make the most of the time that you have, regardless of how much time that is. Oh, great. I am stuck. Oh, the driving part of the commute. It's almost like I called it the commute for some reason. Alright. Now we're over. There was nobody in my blind spot. It's fine. But anyway. It's important to remember as a staff member that what you do in that amount of time matters to the members. The information that you give them, putting a tuner in front of their bell, telling them one thing that they need to do to tune a note, to play a passage more accurately. It's truly interesting what those little things can do. Can change a performance. So if you're a staff member, maybe a younger staff member in terms of experience, like I am at the independent level, don't underestimate the fact that your impact matters. Don't underestimate the fact that, you're capable, because you are more than capable of making some really great things happen, and you should be exceptionally confident in yourself and in your teaching abilities, because you wouldn't have gotten hired onto that staff without being a competent and inspiring educator. And I have to remind myself of that a lot, because despite the fact that I know I'm a good teacher, sometimes being in this new medium, teaching an independent group, I second guess myself, when in the reality I don't need to. I don't want to second guess myself. I don't want to be timid as an instructor. Now I've got to learn. Of course, there's things I got to learn. There's a pacing difference between teaching scholastic and independent groups. Independent groups, you need to get more reps. High school groups, you really need to do that, but the reps have more time in between, because high school, a typical high school group doesn't have the same level of ability across the line as an independent group does, because high school groups aren't auditioned and etc. Right? So when you when you look at it all from that perspective too, you just have to remember how important what you say is. And that can go a long way in making a really positive impact on the show that you are helping create. Whether that be in rehearsal, in the warm-up lot, or even after runs. I was having a couple conversations on Saturday with the members and learning what they thought, learning what they thought we needed to do better. It was very interesting. And I really enjoyed the experience of being at that show on Saturday. I got to see some old friends, students of mine from other schools, people that I work with at other schools too. It was very cool. And yeah, I like seeing the kind of impact that I can have. And I also, with this channel, want to tell you that you can do the same thing. Even if you're not a music teacher. Say you're a history teacher or you're a football coach and you stumble across this video. Your leadership matters, even if you're not the head coach, even if you're not the head band director, even if you're not the brass caption head or the music caption head. Your information matters. And I'm really curious to see how it's going to be when I go back to being a member starting in April once CV's season starts up. What it's going to be like in this hybrid role that I have in my organization between staff and member. Because sometimes I have staff ears and staff dinners, and then I have to have member ears and pretend that I don't hear things. Which is kind of fun, but that doesn't matter too much. Because I didn't join a staff, I didn't get brought onto a staff to hear about all of the stuff that people do. I got brought onto that staff to add value and to learn. Because that's ultimately what it's about for me. And this Saturday showed me just how valuable I can be, despite the fact that I'm not doing what I think I'm very good at, which is picking up a mellophone and performing a show. So, yeah, it was a cool experience. It was a little faster paced than I was expecting. We also had 4 hours in between shows, so I got to just hang out with people. That was pretty cool. But when we got back into warm-up lot, the intensity just went boom, right back in. So that was very unique, and I think that is an underrated ability of independent groups, is just to get after it right away. And even if they're not, you can just say, hey, we need to get after it, and then they will. So, yeah, that's it for today's episode of The Commute. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe, review, do the whole thing. I'd really like to see this channel grow even more than it has as of late, and I can't do it without you. So let's get all these daily brass tips and these longer form videos out there so we can build something awesome. I'll see you guys next time.